plate out. We're going to take a glue stick and we're going to run that a thin layer. Don't do it too heavy, otherwise it could potentially mess up your print. So we're going to run a thin layer all the way through. That way our parts will release from the build plate pretty easy. Then once we get that through, we're going to take this in. We've got the glue on here now. Place that in. I'm going to go ahead and do a self-test. This is not required. I normally do this. Just run a self-test. I've got filament. Go ahead and run that self-test because it's been a while since I used the printer. We finished putting the parts together in assembly view. Let's go back over to Part Studio. We're going to export these parts out, each one at a time. And we're also going to export all the tubes as well as the connections, and we will make a small scale assembly. We'll make sure that everything fits together the way that it did in assembly view. So right click, hit export. Alright, so we're going to export each one. You want Part Studio, just keep the name as it is. The format needs to be STL. We're going to keep this in millimeters because the software we're going to import it in will be set to millimeters. Even though we scaled everything in inches, it'll work out fine. And then we're going to download. So let's go ahead and hit export. And we're going to do this for each one of these parts. I'm not going to make you watch all of this, but I'm going to go through parts 1 through 19. Let's go New Project, go File, Import, and we'll just go in the order that we exported those. So let's go down to Part 1. This is the front frame tube. We're going to need 2 of these, so let's open that up. We're going to go over here to Scale first. We're going to do 1/4 scale, 25%. And then you're going to go over to Lay on Face, and you notice how it has a lighter color. Click on that and it'll lay it on its side. And then we're going to rotate this so that we can kind of orient the parts. We got to be careful because there are certain areas, like it's telling us an error here because we got into this area here where you're not supposed to print anything. So we'll move it over and that error message will eventually go away. So I'm going to unclick on that. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to move that away from that location. You notice that error message went away. So I'm going to right click on this so I don't have to repeat all of those processes and hit clone. It'll keep the scale and most of the positioning, not all of it. Go in and repeat that process. I'm going to go File, Import. We're going to bring in 2 motor mounts. We need 2 of those. So let's go down to Part 2 and import. I'm going to hold down the left click button. It's a little different than what you used in the Onshape software, but most of the commands or tools for the mouse are similar, but you may have different buttons that do the same command. The wheel still scrolls in and out. The left button, you hold it down and you can move this around as you move the mouse around, and then right click allows you to move that whole surface around, but without rotating it. So let's scale this down to 1/4, and let's scroll into that. Let's go Lay on Face, so it gives us these 2 faces over here to look at. Let's lay it on that one, and then let's rotate that. So I'm going to do some rotation. I'm going to do this from above, just so I can see those lines a little bit better. Left click, I'm going to scroll out, and I'm going to move this over. I'm going to clone, okay, and I'm going to put that right below it. Get confused on how many of each part do you need. You can look here, like we need 3 of these tri connections. We need 2 of these connections. So you get the idea. These top frame tube connections, you need 2 of those, and you need 3 of these spar hoop connections, and you can go through and look at how many you have here, and that'll tell you how many you should have in Bamboo Labs. You could either print that off or write those down. That's what I've done. We got the parts 1 through 10. We could probably fit more stuff on there, but I know we can get everything else on the next build plate. If we're not careful, some of these could be too close. Like right here, this is too close to other parts. So I'm going to continue to kind of move that around until I no longer get that warning. So we're going to go File, Save Project, and we'll just do parts 1 through 10. Small scale assembly. And then we'll do parts 11 through 19 on the next print. The parts that are really long. We're going to do preview. Now this is where your warnings will come up. We're going to go ahead and print it as is. We'll let it go through, generate a preview. It'll give you a rough estimate on how long it's going to take. So it's going to take about 1 hour and 13 minutes to print these. Print plate. And then we're going to go and look for a printer. It'll appear here. I'm actually on a different computer, so I'm going to save this and import it over to the other computer and print from there. And then I'll show you what it looks like. Let's open this up. That's our first print. So a lot of these, you can kind of bend your plate fairly easily. And these will come off. Wash it in warm water, put another layer of glue, and then repeat that process for this next batch. Let's go up here and go File, Save As. And instead of 1 through 10, let's do 11 through 19. Save that. We got it fully assembled, so we have our top hoop segments. Everything is kind of pieced together. I did use some small bolts to bolt these swing arms on that I didn't print off, and you might be able to get 3D printed bolts to work if you wanted to make them. I don't think that's needed. You probably just find a small bolt around your house and that'll work. But now that we know all the parts go together, what I'm going to do next is buy these pieces. Skin the parts with either carbon fiber or fiberglass. That would be one way to strengthen it and still use the larger 3D print. Or if I want to send these off and get these 3D printed using metal, so you can 3D print aluminum, or I could send it out to get CNC'd.